Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Planning Committee meeting of the 4th of November 2025. I'm Councillor Phil Murphy, Chairman, and Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Andrew Jones, Head of Planning.
Philip Thomas, Development Services Manager.
Paige Mosley, Solicitor Planning Committee.
Richard Williams, Democratic Services.
We have some officers online, Richard.
Richard Ray, Paralegal.
Right, thank you, everybody. If we go to the agenda now, do we have any apologies, Richard?
Just two apologies, Chair, from Councillors Crook and Rook.
Okay, thank you very much. Any declarations of interest, anybody? As and when, if you suddenly find that there is one. I take it everybody's had a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting. Is somebody prepared to suggest that we adopt them? Thank you, Councillor Howells, and seconded by Councillor Bryn. Thank you very much. Apparently we have no sound online. Is that the case for everybody? Jill?
No, Chair. It's fine. Thank you.
Oh, mine's quite quiet. Sorry, Chair. I can't. My speaker's up full as well.
Yeah, and mine.
But I'm struggling to hear.
Okay, Richard will...
I think it's, Chair, I think it's yourself that's quieter.
Shouldn't be, because I'm on... Can you hear me all right now?
That's better. A bit closer, please. Yes. I could hear everybody else when they introduce themselves. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. So, minutes of the previous meeting we've just done. That you keep your cameras on, otherwise you won't be able to vote. Stay in view, and if for any reason you do have to break off, like there's somebody at the door, then inform us of that so that we can record your situation. Hands up is in at the top of the taskbar this time. We're moving to the new system in December, hopefully, but at the moment we're still operating as we have done for the last couple of months. So if you want to put your hand up, then please use the raise hand function in the taskbar. Has everybody read the late correspondence? There was quite a bit of it. Thumbs up online, please, so I can see you. Okay, thank you very much. So we can now go to the main agenda items, and the first one is application DM 2019/02051, which is the constructions of 20 affordable housing units in Pandy at Wern Gifford, and that's being presented by Phil.
Thank you. Sorry, there's a delay on the presentation there. Okay, so this is an application for the construction of 20 affordable housing units, landscaping and associated works, land at Wern Gifford, Pandy. This is for the aforementioned number of units, landscaping and roadworks to serve the development, as well as green infrastructure and associated SUDS development, although there's a separate application for SAB approval, surface water drainage approval, aside to this. The site is identified in the current LDP as being within the Wern Gifford development boundary. The proposed development of 20 number units comprises 10 one-bedroom houses, 6 three-bedroom houses, and 4 one-person, one-bedroom flats. A variety of different external materials have been included, which is similar to the surrounding area. A mix of stone, facing brickwork, pastel render with grey reconstituted slates and UPVC windows with simple glazing patterns is proposed. There is, however, a condition proposed to approve detail of the external finishes should members approve the development. Most of the site is allocated for residential development under policy SAH 11 of the LDP for 15 dwellings, It's proposed to bring forward the remaining part of the site, which lies outside of the LDP allocation, as affordable housing provision under policy H7 to accommodate rural exception housing sites within the LDP and to accommodate those further 5 dwellings. So we just have a quick look at the slide. That's the application site with the road coming in off the existing cul-de-sac. That shows the development boundary. So you can see the development boundary here. So anything adjoining the development boundary, for instance, in this little corner, would be dealt with under policy H7. These blue lines show public rights of ways in the area. That's the allocation in the development plan, and the sort of spotted area is the flood zone. So that's the layout. So in terms of going back to my text for a moment, the site is adjacent to a Cadw listed schedule monument to the south. It's a tramway embankment of the old Grossmont Railway, which also accommodates a public right-of-way in ancient woodland. The field in which the proposed development is situated forms part of a larger site of interest for nature conservation, which is a local designation valued for neutral grassland and veteran trees. The proposed site is also immediately adjacent to the flood zone, which you saw in the previous slide there, the blue area. And the principal access into the site would cross over that flood area there to the south of the school. The application was presented to Planning Committee on the 3rd of March 2020, where it was resolved to approve the development subject to the resolution of a holding objection raised at the time by Natural Resources Wales in relation to flood modelling. So since then, residential development within the River Wye Special Area of Conservation catchment was paused due to the river failing to meet revised water quality targets for phosphorus. And under the habitat regulations, development that may increase the concentration of phosphate levels will be subject to appropriate assessment and habitat regulation assessment. As such, a test of what we call likely significant effect has been undertaken, which concludes that this proposed development is unlikely to have a significant effect on the phosphate-sensitive river SAC, and a full appropriate assessment is therefore not required. Further details are set out in the report, but in summary, NRW considered that no likely significant effect can be drawn in the context of water quality impacts from this proposal, as Welsh Water has confirmed that there is capacity to treat additional wastewater from the proposed development within revised environmental permit limits, and the Pandy Wastewater Treatment Works is currently operating in compliance with the permit conditions granted by NRW. The applicant has been working with NRW, and this has resulted in the submission of an updated flood consequences assessment, which has allowed NRW to withdraw their original objection. The design of the development is principally the same as that previously presented to committee, with the access layout, scale and unit numbers remaining the same. A change to the arrangement of plots 18 to 20 has been undertaken to improve the design of the scheme, whilst also assisting on the flooding requirements. The main change to the design in terms of flood risk has been the omission of the culvert under the access road as you approach the site, and replacement of it with the spanned bridge now indicated. Consequential impacts of the flood mitigation have followed in the form of the swale and basin design and corresponding landscape design, which we can have a look on some of the drawings. So this is now going to be a roadway, a bridge feature rather than a simple culvert under the road. And then there's more suds and swale areas in this area, and that layout 18 to 20 has been tweaked to bring the development away from the woodland edge and to accommodate SAB features. A soft planting scheme and management strategy has also been provided to demonstrate suitable compensatory mitigation for the loss of the sink area and to enhance the existing sink area, the retained sink area. So in terms of biodiversity concerns, the proposed development is located within the Wern Gifford SINC sink, designated for semi-improved neutral grassland, woodland and veteran trees. The biodiversity team have maintained an objection to the proposal as inappropriate development in a sink. The proposal will result in the loss of sink, including 1.4 hectares of grassland and a small area of woodland, albeit not ancient woodland. There is concern regarding the lack of a buffer between gardens and retained ancient woodland, resulting in degradation of woodland quality. Development proposals that would have a significant adverse effect on a locally designated site of biodiversity will only be permitted where A, the need for the development clearly outweighs the nature conservation or geological importance of the site, and B, it can be demonstrated that the development cannot be reasonably located elsewhere. In this instance, the site is principally within an allocated main village site allocation SA11-15 of the adopted LDP. The decision that the benefit of the development to provide affordable housing would outweigh the harm to nature conservation was made at the time of that allocation. And therefore, in conclusion, parts A and B of the policy have been addressed. A revised preliminary ecological assessment was submitted in September of this year. The report includes an updated assessment based on the current layout and the surveys undertaken previously in 2019 and 2024. The site comprises semi-improved neutral grassland with lines of trees, creating boundaries, areas of scrub and semi-natural woodland, including ancient woodland. The site is suitable foraging habitat for a variety of species, including bats. Woodland and scrub areas are suitable for dormice and nesting birds, and there is also suitable habitat for amphibians, reptiles and other mammals. The proposed mitigation includes securing management of the remaining 2.8 hectares of grassland habitat to enhance its condition and secure biodiversity value. To compensate for degradation to other habitat management must also include protecting and enhancing other features of the sink site, i.e. woodland and hedgerows in this instance. In accordance with Planning Policy Wales, management can be secured for the long term, and in this case a minimum period of 40 years would need to be secured via a Section 106 legal agreement. Precautionary methods of works are also required for trees with potential bats, clearance of areas suitable for dormice and other protected species, including otter nesting birds, reptiles and amphibians, and sensitive lighting is required to safeguard retained habitats. Proposed enhancements include use of native trees and shrub species in on-site landscaping, enhancing retained species-rich hedgerows, creation of habitat piles, provision of bird and bat boxes, and using green hay from the site to seed the new attenuation pond. Further details of implementation and management of those measures would need to be secured with a condition should members be minded to approve the application, as well as being secured in a Section 106 agreement in the longer term, in terms of longer term management. One relatively small section of trees, approximately 10 metres in linear length, will be removed to accommodate the access road. All remaining trees will be retained and protected in accordance with the British standard. The central area of rough grassland will be removed to accommodate the actual built development. The soft landscaping proposals for the development now include the following green infrastructure enhancements. There'll be 21 new native trees on the site edges, 4 new street trees in the centre of the development, 128 linear metres of new species-rich native hedgerow along the site's western and northern boundaries, 1,480 square metres of new wildflower habitat. The remaining retained grassland will be managed through scheduled cutting to develop into wildflower meadow, and these are considered reasonable in the context of the site and development proposed, and together with the measures to be identified and secured in the proposed Section 106 agreement, would meet the terms of Policy GI1 of the LDP. So I'll just quickly run through the rest of the slides. There's a SAB. Sorry, I apologise for the quality of the slide there, but it shows, broadly speaking, the engineering works to the development and the provision of the SAB features there, including that basin there. That's the other part of the site. You come into it. And that's the green infrastructure sort of plan with new fresh planting and management of the sink in this area. New planting here, new hedgerow around the northern and western periphery. That's the sink mitigation plan, broad terms. So there'll be off-site management here and here. These are some elevations and floor plans. There'll be a palette of materials, grey roof tiles, pastel shade render with some reconstituted stone and sills, sub-sills and stone headers as well. That's the approach to the site from the cul-de-sac. So obviously the road will continue past where that lamppost and broken hedgerow is. That's where the site access would be into the site and beyond, and that's within the site itself. And that's summary of the actual main issues. So we do note the concerns raised by the community about local sewerage problems. We do sympathise with these, but ultimately the statutory undertaker, Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water, does not object to this application, stating that there is suitable hydraulic capacity in the public sewerage system and downstream, and the downstream wastewater treatment works to accommodate foul flows from the development the subject to this application. They've requested a condition that prevents surface water flows from entering the foul system, and this is included as condition 14. Without an objection being raised by Dŵr Cymru, there would not be grounds to defer or refuse this proposal. In conclusion, the site would bring forward much needed affordable housing on an allocated site and as part of the LDP Rural Exceptions Housing Policy H7. The concerns raised by biodiversity related to the original allocation, and much of these concerns can be addressed by managing the undeveloped land in the sink in a more careful and considered manner, and would be secured via a Section 106 agreement. There is also the need to apply one further condition as requested by Highways but not included in late correspondence, and that will say no development may commence until the developer submits full details of a proposed means of speed reduction along the development access road for approval by the planning authority, and the development shall be carried out in accordance with those approved details. So we would recommend approval subject to conditions both in the report, in late correspondence, and as just referenced, to address environmental, highways and amenity issues, and subject to the Section 106 agreement to secure management of the grassland and long-term maintenance of the housing as affordable. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And usually, as usual, a very comprehensive summary there. We do have the ward member who has got a presentation for us. So, Dave.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Planning Committee and ladies and gentlemen. Speaking to you in this meeting makes me think that I've been here before, and it is not a case of me losing my faculties, but this application in a similar guise was discussed by the Planning Committee in 2020. At that point, local residents and those representing them were accused of being NIMBYs. This is very far from the truth, as the community, to a very large extent, are okay with this, with most aspects of the planned development. I will deal with one factor that causes concern. This massive objection is down to the existing sewage system, which is not fit for its existing purpose, let alone dealing with the waste from another 20 dwellings and their inhabitants, whatever number that may be. Now then, you may well be wondering, what is the problem? Well, the issue has occupied an amazing amount of time for the Crickhorny Community Council for the last 15 years or so. There have been visits from Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water, public consultation, and ever so many promises from their delegates that things will change. However, it is the residents that are being adversely affected. As far back as 2013, the then chair of the Community Council was told that the entire system was hydraulically overloaded. So it was the reason it did not work properly then and has not worked properly since, especially when you consider that the number of properties has increased a lot since then. In the dialogue between Welsh Water, Dŵr Cymru and the Criconi Community Council, some measures have been promoted by Dŵr Cymru, and these include: inspection covers need to be removed to allow access. A simple procedure, you may think, but Dŵr Cymru, it seems, are not fully aware of the location of these inspection points. This is known because Dŵr Cymru state that they have carried out the work, but sites where it is known by residents that the covers exist have not been opened, as they are covered with soil and vegetation that has not been removed. They remain undisturbed. Roots have grown through the pipes and are effectively blocking the pipes. The pipes are only of 6 inches or 15 centimetre diameter, which is, I would say, rather small to carry everything that is required. Attempts have been made to repair these broken pipes, but what is needed is for the system to be replaced with a pipe of a larger diameter that can cope with the volume that needs to pass through the pipe to get to the sewage works at the other end of the village, which is approximately a mile away from the development before you today. So if the pipes are blocked and broken, why are they not replaced? Well, a cynic may suggest that this is because it will cost Dŵr Cymru too much money, so they will avoid this at all costs. Furthermore, they will not refuse a planning permission, as this will be an admission that the system is not as it should be. So, members of the committee, what effect does this faulty system have in Wern Gifford, and what effect will it have on the houses being planned for? Other speakers this afternoon who live in Wern Gifford and other areas of Pandy will give you a true-to-life account of their experiences. I believe that we've received detailed accounts of the effects on people's lives. To summarise with a question, why should residents have to put up with sewage coming up from the system that I've described into their toilets and their bathrooms? And also, they had to bear the cost of removal and cleaning afterwards. In 2025, is it right that millions of bacteria destined for the sewage works should enter residents' homes? Apart from the sight and smell of this, we also have to bear in mind that many of these millions of bacteria have the ability to cause disease. And don't forget that in the right conditions, these millions of bacteria have the potential to reproduce themselves and produce millions more bacteria every 20 minutes. The current situation is totally unacceptable in anyone's home, and there is an application before you this afternoon that it cannot be guaranteed that this will not happen in the 20 new homes that you are considering allowing to be built. I understand that the developer is suggesting a new drain that joins the sewage system to the west of Wern Gifford. Surely if more water and waste is entering the same small pipe, and the same pipe is blocked or partly blocked further on, then the current problems are not going to be solved. The hydraulically overloaded system will continue to force the water backwards towards a weaker point.
Can you start winding up, please, Councillor Jones?
This is likely, thank you, Chair, this is likely to be a toilet or a bathroom in the area of Wern Gifford as it is currently. Worse still, from your point of view, is that the sewage may not leave or would return to the bathroom that it has just left in the proposed development before you this afternoon. I'm not using this ghastly situation to scupper this application, but what I would ask you, members, is to delay granting permission until Dŵr Cymru can upgrade the existing system to a decent standard, where such backflow calamities as I've described, and you will hear more about later, will not happen in existing homes and will certainly not cause the upset and heartache to the new owners or occupiers of possibly the dream homes that they will be moving into. It would be an embarrassment if you approve this application and the upsurge of sewage into residents' homes was to continue. I urge you, please, members of the Planning Committee, to grant permission only when the sewage system can ably cope with the waste that it has and will be produced in existing and potential new dwellings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. We have a contribution now from the Community Council in the form of a video recording, which Andrew's going to play. trying to get that.
One of us put our sound on, just one of us put our sound on. Yes, share sound. Yeah, share sound.
We'll just play with it for a minute, Tom. Yeah, just for the benefit of those at the back, we're trying to play the video. For some reason, the sound is only coming out here rather than over the PA system. So we're just getting one of the technical guys to come and have a look.
It's not coming through media player. Right, different outcome. Quite no. I've downloaded it. Share that, yeah? Yeah.
Pranaam Dha, good afternoon to the Chair of the Committee and members of the Committee. My name is Anne Bentley, I live in the village of Pandy and I work for the Local Health Board as the Head of Strategic Resourcing. I've been a community councillor for the past 14 years. I am currently out of the country on holiday, and I thank you for the opportunity to submit a video to speak today on behalf of Crickhorny Community Council, and more importantly on behalf of people who call our villages home. For many years now, our villagers have lived with a problem that most people shouldn't have to think twice about: our sewage system. It is not a glamorous issue, it doesn't make headlines or win awards, but it affects how we live, how we plan our future, and how we feel about the place we love. Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water have admitted as far back as 2013 that the Gravity Foul sewer serving Pandy is hydraulically overloaded. It further confirmed that there is an amount of storm flows entering the bottom end of the catchment, which exceeds the design capacity of the sewers in this area in times of heavy rainfall. It is also mentioned that there was a lot of surface water entering the public sewage system upstream of the Rising Sun Public House, now the River's Edge, and above, which is above the proposed development. Some 12 years on, the Community Council is still unaware of any major improvements to improve Dŵr Cymru's findings of 2013. Dŵr Cymru's Welsh Water's approach is clear. It would be too costly to replace the existing inadequate sewage drainage system, and it is more affordable to deal with the issues and complaints as they arise rather than to undertake improvement work required, effectively ignoring the problem and being complacent to the consequence that local residents encounter year on year. For many years, we have written letters, attended meetings, gathered evidence and sought advice. We have asked questions, and sometimes we've waited in silence for answers that never quite came. We are here again because the issue is not just about pipes and drains, it is about people. It is about the families whose gardens flood when the sewage system fails. It is about residents whose toilets overflow. It is about young families who want to stay in the village but worry about what happens every time it rains. And it is about older residents who have been raising this issue for decades, still waiting to see a change and to be listened to. We are not here today to complain, we are here today to be heard. Because when local voices are generally listened to, solutions become better and fairer. When councils and communities work together, we see what can be achieved, not through confrontation, but cooperation. So today we are opposing the proposed development, noting we are not NIMBYs, as previously inferred. We are a proactive community council looking to support young people to live locally and support existing residents to improve this unacceptable sewage issue. We ask members of the council for three things: that members of the committee acknowledge the long-standing sewage draining system problem and its impact on our community, that we work together, council officers, local representatives and residents, to engage with Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water to improve the lived experience of residents with a failing sewage system, and to be mindful that approving development after development with no action plan to address the ongoing issue with the sewage system will lead to raw sewage continuing to overflow into residents' homes and gardens. Thank you for listening this afternoon. Diolch yn fawr. Prynhawn dda.
Right, well, sorry about the technical problems there, but I think everybody managed to hear Councillor Bentley in the end. We now have Catherine Ward, who's going to address us, and you're going to do it from up there, aren't you, Catherine?
Yes, please.
Okay. You have 4 minutes.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Catherine Ward. I have lived in Pandy for 60 years and on Wern Gifford for the past 25. I have Crohn's disease, which is an inflammatory bowel disease, which obviously means I need urgent access to a toilet, frequently during flare-ups, and that can cause problems with the sewage system at the moment on Wern Gifford, because it will overflow and blocks during heavy or persistent rain. Back in 2021, I had to have major bowel surgery, which resulted in me having a permanent stoma. I know I'm not alone on Wern Gifford and the immediate area. There are 3 other people with stomas who also obviously can experience issues when the sewage system isn't functioning correctly. The NACC, which is the National Association of Crohn's and Colitis, and the Colostomy UK are both support organisations for people with stomas and Crohn's. And they say that 1 in 335 people within the UK have a stoma, so which is 0.3% of the UK's overall population. However, within the Wern Gifford area, there are 111 dwellings, 104 I believe on Wern Gifford, and the others are, as you drive in, there are some older properties that aren't part of the estate. So perhaps say 2 people per household, 222 people. With the 4 of us that do have the stomas, that gives a figure of 1.8% of that population, which is obviously a lot higher than the national average. So, you know, I hope you accept that a fully functioning toilet and sewage system is vitally important to me and my fellow stoma sufferers, I suppose you call it. So every time there is heavy and or persistent rain, I'm always on alert, thinking, wait for it. And then the toilet will start gurgling. And then if I have to use it and flush it, it comes right up to the brim, quite often flows over into my bathroom. So you're having to clean out your toilet when you're probably not feeling at the best anyway. And so once that happens, I then have to use a bucket or other container to empty my stoma, which I don't think is particularly nice in a supposedly developed system. And once the sewage system goes back to normal, it can take up to 24 hours for everything to clear through after the rain has stopped, if it stops. Then I usually empty whatever I've had to empty into a bucket or whatever down the sewage. It's not exactly a very dignified or hygienic way to live your life. And also, it affects your mental well-being. It's not, you know, I'm upset that I have to do this. I'm sure, you know, the other 3 sufferers on Wern Gifford also feel the same. And I know, as both of the people have mentioned, we've had a lot of issues. People mention issues, been told by the community councillors.
30 seconds left, Catherine.
Pardon?
We've got 30 seconds.
Oh, right, okay, God. So I have had Welsh Water out twice, once in November 2023, once in November 2024. The sewage was all blocked up. The one guy, the first time, jetted it to clear it completely. But then again, it blocked again the following year. Obviously, a lot of things have been spoken about that, but I'm sure, as you all know, that the word wern in Welsh means a swamp or bog, which is most appropriate, as that is what happens in the area when we do have heavy rain. And it's just very worrying and stressful when it happens, and that, you know, you can't just go to the toilet like a normal person and flush it. It just comes back up. And so, just to finish off, thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity to share my story, as graphic as it may have been. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. That can't have been easy. Sam.
Thank you, Chair. I act on behalf of the applicant P&P Builders, who have been working in partnership with Heading Houses Association to deliver a scheme of 20 affordable homes, predominantly made up of small family housing with a number of apartments. This proposal was first presented to members in March 2020 when committee resolved to approve the application subject to satisfying NRW's requirements for flood mitigation. Resulting delays were associated with the phosphates concerns, which have now been resolved, and the application is therefore being presented back to members for determination, with the main changes to the scheme covering the span bridge, the increase in soft landscaping and biodiversity enhancements, and changes to the surface water design as detailed by officers, along with some more minor changes to the layout associated with plots 18 to 20. Given the response and the comments that I've just listened to, it feels like I don't really need to cover the principle of the development in terms of land use policy terms. It sounds like that's without question. Similarly, the design and the merits of the scheme, I had prepared something just to flag up the benefits of the design, the fact that all the units would be designed to DQR standard, lifetime homes, secure by design accreditation, EPCA rated, and non-fossil fuel dependent seem irrelevant given the concerns that are raised. What I'd like to do is just jump to the main concern, which seems to just focus on drainage. From the applicant's point of view, we consulted with Welsh Water through the PAC process over 5 years ago, and at the time we were advised that there were localised issues in the area that were being resolved on a case-by-case basis. Jump forward 5 years, Welsh Water have been reconsulted, and again, they've advised us now that there's no objection to the scheme and no objection to our proposal, and there's capacity to serve the development. Our design in terms of surface water is in accordance with Welsh Water's advice, so the surface water will be separated and won't be entering into the foul sewer. As officers have explained, we've got a separate design for surface water, which is included in a pond and a swale and then up to a separate watercourse. In terms of the foul, the foul isn't going to be connected into the existing estate, but is going to be directed onto the A465 to a connection immediately to the west and then down into the surface treatment walks. So I've sought advice from our engineers who have assured me that there won't be any exacerbation of the existing problems. It won't necessarily solve the existing problems, but it won't make it any worse. So to conclude, the application before you is a robust proposal that will deliver much needed high quality affordable housing on an allocated site within the settlement. All ecological and environmental concerns have been considered and addressed within the revised design, and the applicant would respectfully encourage members to follow their officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. There are several points there which I think I'll give officers the opportunity of coming in on before we go to members. So, Phil, do you want to come back on any of that?
Let's debate it.
Okay, that's fine.
Obviously, the focus has been on the sewerage problem. There's an existing sewerage problem in the area, and we've heard, some very cautionary tales from local residents and the community council. The problem we've got, and as I said in my presentation, is that Dŵr Cymru is saying there's adequate capacity in the local network, and the wastewater treatment works is operating within its environmental permit terms. So we haven't got anything to hang our sort of coats on in order to go back and actually say to Welsh Water, we don't think this development is ready to go yet until those works, those localised works that are affecting the locality are carried out and remedied. We have to go by the advice we're given by the statutory consultee, and in that instance, they're saying that there is adequate capacity and this should not cause any further problem. So that's really all I can say in terms of the sewerage situation. We have to go on the advice of the statutory consultee, i.e. Welsh Water.
Okay, thanks. Andrew, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I'd also just like to extend our thanks to Catherine and Councillor Jones for speaking today. That's certainly noted. I think the one part of Dŵr Cymru's consultation response that I would just flag to members, and Phil is quite right, they are the statutory consultee on this matter. The point they raise in their consultation is on a previous consultation, they acknowledged that Pandy was failing to comply with a 95% quartile for its flow past forward performance, and therefore in their previous comments on this application they'd requested a Grampian style condition to be included. In the most recent planning consultation response, they do they acknowledge that previous position, but they do advise us that the Pandy treatment works is now currently compliant with the 95% quartile for flow pass performance at the time of the consultation. And then they say confirming to us as statutory consultee that there is hydraulic capacity for the development proposed. So I think that's a key acknowledgement from them, or where this, obviously this application has taken some time, as has been acknowledged from when they were previously engaged with this back in 2020. There is an acknowledgement of that situation then, and an update to that, and that is the latest advice to us as officers to make an informed recommendation to you as members. And that's for you, say, to debate now. If there's any further points we can assist with, of course we will. But I just wanted to draw that particular acknowledgement within Dŵr Cymru's most recent consultation response.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I have a question before I bring other members in, and it's for Sam, possibly. Sam, when your fell water connects to the main sewer on the A465, do you know which direction it then flows in? Does it flow west or east towards the effluent coming from the Warren Gifford development?
I believe it follows the northern. It goes north of the along the A465.
So away then from any other effluent going in from the rest of the development there.
I imagine it'll be I don't know. I haven't got the records for the estate, but I imagine that the estate then connects at some point along that sewer. But it's a larger bigger sewer that's within the highway.
So shouldn't contribute to any further blocking. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, I'm not an engineer, but I've spoken to the engineers to seek their advice, and that's what I've been advised. It shouldn't make anything worse. It won't necessarily fix the problems, but it won't make anything worse.
Okay, thank you for that. And Councillor Buckler.
Thank you, Chair, very much. And I'd like to thank Anne Bentley, the Community Councillor for Corney Community Council, and the members of the public for talking so eloquently about this. Also, Councillor David Jones. This is a really sort of shocking scenario, I think, for Welsh Water, Dŵr Cymru, because we've been hearing that they have known there have been problems. They deal with them on a case-by-case basis for years. In the intervening years since the first application came in 5 years ago, there have been other developments, and more permissions have been granted, so there is more stress on the system. And actually, I don't think it's good enough, and it's not. I cannot, in all consciousness, vote for this when we have existing problems for residents. There is one aspect, actually, so that if you when your house is insured and you flag up there are sewage problems and that you have to clear them up every time it rains, your insurance will be invalidated. And I wonder how many people who live in Llanfihangel Corney, and it's not just Warren Gifford that is seemingly affected by this, because all these properties from Llanfihangel Corney and Warren Gifford go into the Pandy treatments work. How many people are affected, but they don't say it because they're concerned that their insurances will be invalid. I would say that, the 6-inch pipe, there'll be clay pipes, there'll be sectional clay pipes. I know, living on a farm in the area, so I understand the huge amount of water we can get coming off the hills, that they do suffer in rural conditions from roots coming into the pipes and blocking them. we deal with it every winter, and it's no different in those circumstances. It is definitely, I would say, to say that it's not hydraulically overloaded, I think is erroneous. There's been no improvement in the structure at all in this area, and how can they, when there are existing problems, turn round, even if they're doing improvements to the waste treatment plant? How can they say that that is fit for purpose? I don't think it's fit for purpose, and I don't think we should be put in this position. Surface water historically will be going in to this system. I know that the proposed development won't, and that's laudable, but the amount of rainfall we get ever increasing every year means that there is huge overload on the system. Just a point with Sam, you picked up the point about the sewage pipe. It will actually go west. It will go from this new development. It will then go to Wern-Gifford and then to other properties until it gets to Pandy. So Llanfihangel Corney first, then the houses going down to Wern-Gifford, the new development, then Wern-Gifford, then other houses, then Pandy. So everyone is connected, everyone's affected, and it will not, be easy for anyone. I can't agree with this statement that it won't make it any worse, because it will, and it's not good enough. I also personally have a serious concern about the diversity team's objections to this plan. It is, as we saw when we did a site visit yesterday, it is an environmentally sensitive area. The ancient woodlands is very much in evidence. The monument, the scheduled monument, the whole structure, it was quite boggy, the field we were in today. The rain hasn't started yet. So I would say there are, concerns, and it's a delicate area. Also, access through the cul-de-sac. It's a restricted diameter, which we sort of flagged up with Andrew Jones as we were looking on site. And, the curtilage of the house means that you won't be able to take any more from that. So there will be, constrictions for people already living there, as well as in the new development. I have serious concerns, and I just cannot vote for this. It's not right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Buckler. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask something of a slightly different nature. What is the public transport like in this area? Because I'm aware, unless I'm out of date, and it is fairly recent, that 2 out of 3 of the pubs are on the market. The local hotel / music venue is also on the market. I don't think there are any shops in that area at all, and I just wondered what the frequency of public transport was in the area.
Okay, Phil, have we got any information on that?
Not immediately, Chair, sorry. I'll just do some quick research while the debate carries on.
Okay, we'll try and come back to you, Councillor Riley. Councillor McKenna. Oh, sorry, I'll come to you in a minute, Tony.
Yeah, shall I go?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Phil, and to Councillor Jones for his very thorough account on behalf of his residents, and also to the Community Council, and to the very brave and courageous lady who's there in the chamber today, who has spoken about her lifestyle and how this could impact on her. So thank you. Whenever I look at sort of planning policy and things, I like to think that planning policy is there for 2 main reasons. One is to protect people, and the other is to protect the environment. I believe that with these sewerage issues that are ongoing at the moment, that this development will affect both people and the environment with regards to those sewerage issues. Now, I don't believe that the objections that I've seen online, of which there are many from residents, are based on NIMBYism. but they are based just purely on genuine concerns regarding the sewage system that is not fit for purpose. And I accept that Welsh Water may say that there is capacity, but you can have all the capacity in the world, but if it is not fit for purpose and not working functionally in its current form, then for me that is a problem. And I don't believe that residents are making it up. You know, there's many objections online. So my own personal opinion is I feel it would be really irresponsible of me to support this application at present. I'm fully aware that we need more housing in Monmouthshire, that there's a housing shortage, that we need more affordable housing. And I'm not against this application per se with regards to location and things. But I do have to act responsibly when casting my vote on this. And I'm sorry, but in its present form, with the issues with regards to sewerage, I cannot support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKenna. Councillor Easton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I know this area very well. I spent a lot of my youth there, and I think the houses were being built in that area when I was in that area, maybe 50, 60 years, 70 years ago. And they were probably built, like most of the houses in those days, with mixed sewer systems. In other words, the rainwater and the sewage water went into one. These are probably built the same way. In respect of the application for the properties, I don't have any problem with that. But I remember this came to our committee some years ago, 2020, I'm told, I couldn't remember it. And the similar problems were there then in terms of flooding, in terms of the runoff of water from that area, in the Pandy area. There were concerns about the drainage, but it's now been brought more to our light that the actual drainage system is not up to standard. I wasn't aware of that at the time. Now, 6-inch pipes, 150mm pipes, they need to be, in my mind, removed. A similar problem opposite my house in Caldecott, where 6-inch pipes run from the house opposite all the way into the Caldecott, into the housing estate there, where it all had to be removed and replaced some 10, 12 years ago for exactly the same reason. So in terms of the application for houses and the properties, they're fine. And I think the other issues regarding the flooding and the runoff water seem fine, but I'm not convinced that there's been enough effort being put into the problem of removing the sewerage. It won't be a mixed hereditament, but we're talking about a sewage system which was there 50, 60 years ago and adding to it. For the gentleman from Heading, I think you said you're going to divert some of it away. Am I correct? There's some diversion onto the Pandy Road where the A465 is up by the pub. The actual connection isn't to the existing sewer. It's down on the 465. Is there some alleviation to the system, or is it still going to overload the system which you were talking about?
That's the same system.
Same system. All right. Well, in terms of the application, I got no problem with houses, but I am concerned that we've got to resolve this matter. If we don't resolve it now, it's going to cause problems in the future if there are to be further additions to the area. So I can't support it at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Easton. Councillor Butler.
Sorry, just to say, there were some responses in the chat to the bus services, and I have had a look, and Councillor Butler has mentioned there's a regular service and a local shop at Skirrid Mountain Garage, and Councillor David Hughes-Jones helpfully said there's a 2-hour service that operates between Abergavenny and Brecon, is it? Not Brecon, Hereford, sorry. I've had a look, and it is every 2 hours, roughly, through the day.
Okay, thanks for that, Phil. So, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, I have just to reflect how shocked I am by the situation some of the residents are finding themselves in. And just to say that I'm a survivor of my last 2 houses where I had to call Welsh Water in for similar problems. So I've got a fair amount of experience, so I know where you're at. What you probably need to be aware of is that all shared sewage drains are the responsibility of Dŵr Cymru right up to your house. And a lot of people don't understand that. So if you're having problems, it is actually Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water's responsibility. You don't need to call out drains for you or whoever. Get Dŵr Cymru to come out, because if there's something wrong, you are paying for them to fix it, really, in your water rates. So I do urge you to, get back onto them really. And, in light of the fact that, we're talking about where the drains on the new development are headed, I'm not absolutely sure that this proposal it's related to this proposal. But I think, what is the next step for these residents, really? They're obviously, they're Monmouthshire residents. They clearly need some help. Looking through what's been presented to us, I can see that BPNP are highlighting some discrepancies between revisions. And I do understand there are people on this committee who were here in 2020. I wasn't, so it's all new to me. Some of these seem to be related to boundary planting and the width of the buffer zone. And the conflict between root protection and drainage. I'm not absolutely sure that those have been satisfied. And BNB also have some concerns about dark skies. Highways, I note, are saying that they're not against the proposed bridge, but that will be subject to further consideration at the detailed design stage. So it doesn't seem to me that they're fully satisfied either. And I noticed with environmental health, the noise assessment. It's not clear from what I've read. We're talking about 1.8 metre close board fencing behind 16, 17 and 18. And then it says now 16 and 17 are going to have an earth bank, and I can't quite visualise that. But I really don't like, especially when you've got small development like this, they can easily just look so penned in when you've got the 1.8 metre board fencing up there. So I don't know whether you could clarify for me where the board fencing is going to be and where that earth bank is going to be, and how much of that 1.8 fencing is left, really. The other thing that I haven't been able to find any information on is regarding how these houses are going to be heated. Will there be air source heat pumps and solar panels? I couldn't find that data, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Butler. Phil, do you want to come in on those items now or after everybody's spoken?
Yeah, I'm just having a look at where the button.
Well, we'll come back to you then. Councillor Bond.
Totally agree with what's just been said. I was going to ask about sustainability, air source heat pumps and solar panels. And we desperately need affordable homes and a great scheme, but I really am concerned about the sewage. It doesn't sound like it's completely nailed down or sorted. Well, for the existing people, and thank you to everyone who's spoken today, but also what impact this new development will have. So not totally sure that we've got all the information that we need to make a decision today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Howells.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone, for their contribution today. I've read the comments from Crickhoney Community Council as well, and I can see their concern. I think we really need, dependent on this decision today, that we fully need to understand whether this development is going to have an effect on the existing drainage or not. So I don't know, Phil, if you can provide any further information on that. As I think, we as councillors or as a committee wouldn't want to contribute to any further problems that these residents are experiencing. So I don't know where we go from that, really. We really do need to understand whether this is going to have an effect or not. A few other items I'd like to sort of pick up as well. With regards to the narrowing of the road, will that remain, just for clarity? So is that going to remain as a speed calming feature? So whether the road narrows there? I think there was a bit of discussion yesterday about that, and I couldn't understand what was the agreement. And I note from some comments that they're concerned about the extra movements of vehicles on the road. Is there details of how much more vehicle movements would be seen on that road from 20 homes? And generally, that's a figure that's available to us. And also, if we are minded to approve the application, presumably there'd be a full construction traffic management plan on site, but could we condition that there are no deliveries around school drop-off and pick-up times? And finally, with regards the primary school itself, I noted the comments that the school is already full or has not have much capacity. Do we know figures on the school for capacity, whether or not, I presume these houses are going to be encouraging for young families to sort of move into? So, you know, how many extra children will that the development attract? And also, does the school have capacity for those children at primary level? A few questions there. Sorry, Phil.
Okay, Councillor Howells. I'm going to go to Councillor Bin, and then I'll invite Phil to come back in after he's done his research. So, Councillor Bin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the residents and other contributors today bringing added detail to this application. Like Councillor Butler, I was also concerned as to whether the biodiversity officer's concerns have been addressed with the amended green planting scheme. It was not quite clear whether the buffer zone is now adequate and whether they're satisfied with that, because they had objected, and I couldn't see any detail on the lighting strategy, because that was something else that they were concerned about, and whether the Bannau Brycheiniog National Park dark skies safeguards have been incorporated, ensuring that there's dark commuting and foraging areas for bats retained both during and post development. I couldn't find any detail on that. Talking and discussing the bus stop, I did note when we were on site that the bus stop is actually very close to this development site, but there would seem to be no plans to allow direct access to it, rather than to let residents to walk all around the houses to go back to almost where they started. And I didn't know if that had been considered to allow direct access, and what the difference is between walking distances between walking directly from the end of the road to the bus stop, or to walk all the way around the houses to access the same spot. If we're trying to make active travel more appealing, we do need to make sure that the access is more direct than it would be by vehicle. And yeah, my final concern was with the straightness of the exit road. As with the highways, they were concerned with what traffic calming measures will be put into place, and I'd like a bit more detail on that, because that will be the primary access for children on this site to walk to school, and it would be good if they could walk independently. It's such a short route. Therefore, if drivers have a tendency to put their foot down on very straight roads, if we could put some kind of traffic calming measures within this, and it would be good to have some kind of detail on what was going to be proposed, so we could better understand it. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Bin. I've got nobody else immediately asking to speak. So, Phil, do you want to come back on those points?
Yeah, the issue about the earth bank raised by Councillor Butler, there's not actually a detail on the plans, but it does say it's an option to have that instead of a 1.8 metre high fence. So we can go back to a 1.8 metre fence if that is, you don't want that. But that's a standard approach to have a 1.8 metre fence in back gardens. It's not overly high. The DQR standards, your design quality requirement standards. So, you know, the vast majority of houses are going to have 1.8 metre high rear fences, if not all of them, apart from that bank. So it just makes sense to revert to a fence if that's the case, rather than have an earth bank behind you. There's a lot of other points there. In terms of highways and traffic generation, there's comments in the Access Highway Safety Section 6.22 about the amount of traffic movements from 20 units. So it'd be approximately 145 two-way vehicular movements throughout the day, with a total of 20 trips in the AM peak and 12 in the PM peak. But ultimately, this site has been allocated for housing in the LDP. We've got to remember that as a fundamental point, and these issues would have been fleshed out at the time of allocation during the examination. We're only adding 5 dwellings to that, which is clearly within the capacity of the road network. Highways have not objected, subject to conditions, to secure some localised road improvements and to secure the design of the the road internally within the site, including traffic calming along that straighter stretch of road, which would be subject to a planning condition. We can't flesh out absolutely every engineering detail within a planning application. That's where we call a Section 38 or Section 278 highways agreement comes in, and that will be designed in detail with the highway engineers to make sure that it's safe and be subject to safety audits as well, which again are part of the Highways Act process, not the planning process. There will be a construction traffic management plan as a condition. As I said, there will be a traffic calming feature in that, which will accommodate the ability to walk throughout this site and on the existing, linking in with the existing footway to the school, which is only, in terms of sustainability, a very short walk from this site. It's ideal in that respect in terms of accessibility. It's about half a kilometre to get to the bus stop via the internal estate road, again, which isn't it doesn't take you very long to actually reach the bus stop, and that would be the route that certainly somebody pushing a pram or whatever will sort of wheeled sort of travel will travel rather than across the field. If you cross the field, we try and link that up. It is crossing the sink and also some SAB features, so I'm not sure really providing a link is the appropriate measure we would want to encourage in this particular instance. It would be normally, but not particularly in this particular instance. And in terms of schools, this will generate a small number of primary and secondary pupils. I haven't got the numbers, but people generally think that this is going to be a high number, but it won't be. It'll be a relatively small number. If the local school hasn't got capacity in a particular age group, there will be an obligation to bus them to other local schools. But bear in mind, this site is allocated in the local development plan for affordable housing. That is ultimately the bottom line. So normally they will be accommodated in the local school, but if push comes to shove, they may have to be bused to a local school. But that should normally be manageable in the local school, given the low numbers that are going to be generated by this development. It will also help retain and keep alive the local school as well, having a new development in that area. I think, in terms of biodiversity, this is a compromise, this site. It's partly located on a sink. We've gone to more measures in terms of mitigating the development where it is within the sink area and more effectively managing the retained sink land. So it is a compromise. Perhaps in the new plan we won't be developing sites such as this, but it's allocated in the adopted local development plan. So we're making the best of this particular position via the mitigation proposed within this improved scheme from the original submission. So I think the applicant has worked with our biodiversity people in actually improving the scheme to provide effective management of the sink and providing more native species across the site where we are planting. I think that's about it. Oh, in terms of dark skies, there is a lighting condition, so we'll be looking for lower level lighting across the site and for that to be managed with head-in the longer term, so that there won't be any, calls for, higher lights and intrusive lighting to protect the dark sky status of the area. So I think I've covered most of the things that were raised. There was quite a list.
One more item in the chat.
It was there. So
it's the split of affordable and social rent.
Well, that's not really a planning issue, is it? It's that will be down to head-in as to how they manage the social housing units. Social rent is obviously affordable, but there will be potentially some, I don't know, maybe low-cost own ownership. I think, I don't know if the agent has got any information you provide on that. But in terms of planning, as long as we secure the 100% of the site for affordable, in terms of meeting the basic, what we define as affordable, then that's all we can achieve.
Yes, do you want to come in? Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, often these would be tenure neutral, and it's down to that discussion, that ongoing discussion with our housing officer and the developer and the RSL partner to establish what's needed and what that tenure would be, depending on what that need is. So, yeah, we wouldn't normally prescribe within the 106 that level of percentage of social rent. If it's tenure neutral, then it's that flexibility that our housing officer has to work with the RSL partner. Just rather than flip-flopping back between myself and Phil, there was comments in respect of air source heat pumps, solar panels, etc. As we've said at previous committee meetings, there isn't currently the policy framework to ensure that is delivered on all schemes. There's obviously an overriding desire, but until there's a policy framework, their absence wouldn't be a ground to withhold planning permission because of their absence. I know that a lot of the RSLs, as we've done on previous schemes, they're providing that infrastructure anyway, and properties do enjoy extensive permitted development rights under Part 40 to provide these sort of features. I thought it'd be worthwhile just looping back on the matter of foul drainage, and that seems to be a prevailing and overriding concern at this meeting, and I think that's a fair summary and assessment of the debate and how we've got to this point. I think it's just probably worth just clarifying a few issues, and then ultimately, members, it is for you to make a decision, but it's for us as officers to give you options and to give you advice on ways forward. I think a clear thing, and some of these may be repeated from previously, it's clear to point out that this is not a mixed. It's not a mixture of foul and surface. They would be separated. As I said earlier, Welsh Water have acknowledged previous conditions and previous hydraulic capacity, and that position has been updated in their statutory consultee response. I think a key point here that some have alluded to it and some have stated, the planning application before us can't be used as a tool or a mechanism to improve a situation that's existing elsewhere. It can't exacerbate or add to that problem, absolutely, because the development must be considered on its own impacts and its impact on others, but it can't in isolation solve what is, and absolutely nobody here has got any doubt, and the stories and narratives that have been shared, we do thank people for attending today and speaking very honestly and very bravely about very real issues. But the planning application before us is not the mechanism to solve existing problems. It simply cannot exacerbate them. The advice of our statutory consultee, I think this is just a point I'd like to make, is in terms of ways forward now of progressing the debate and progressing the application. It's just mindful to members, Do Cymru Welsh Water are our statutory consultee in this matter, and their advice to us is clear. And it would just be a word of caution in terms of failure to produce evidence to substantiate the impact of a proposal or reason for refusal, taking advice contrary to professional technical advice in making your decisions. They've raised concerns, and that's fair to do so. And I say there's no evidence from us to suggest that any third parties that have spoken today, that those aren't their experiences. There's no reason to doubt that. If there are concerns, an option to members is rather than vote to refuse, is a vote to defer for further consideration of this, for us to pick up those conversations with Welsh Water that hopefully might provide you with some further assistance. That ultimately is your gift, members, and that's for you to decide democratically. But I would just repeat that point about taking decisions against the advice of statutory consultees, and on making sure that those are done on material planning considerations and within the remit of the planning application process. So that's just to give advice and a view. Ultimately, that's for you to decide as you wish.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Right, I've got 3 people registered asking to vote now. Now, going to draw a line under it after that. So, first of all, Councillor Eason.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think my comments earlier on are not really valid in as much as Andrew says this is an application regarding a specific thing, a specific plan. But I do have concerns that is it going to go into a combined system? I understand from the plan application that it will be clear in modern technology that there will be combined, there will be separate system for sewer and separate system for the drainage. But is the original site at the moment, original area at the moment, is that combined, or are there two separate systems? I think somehow we've got to find an answer to how to resolve the problems of the drainage, but do we do it by deferring? Whilst I accept Andrew's point that we can't really look back on a development and insist that something is done just to protect what we're trying to do as a plan application. I'd like to defer this, to be honest, and see what we can resolve.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Easton. Councillor Buckler.
Thank you very much, Chair. Andrew, thank you for clarifying that. That's helpful. I would, obviously locally there is a need for affordable housing. There's no question about that. Young people, we have it all the time. It's very difficult for them to find somewhere to live, etc. And it's entirely right that we should be considering it on that basis. And I'd love to be able to say this is great, and I think I'm completely content with it. But I think there is a real problem with exacerbating the ongoing problems. And I think Dŵr Cymru should jolly well sort their house in order and do the right thing by the existing residents and for future residents. So I would, in those circumstances where you're advising that, you can't just say no without, reasonable cause, I think we should defer for proper consultation with Dŵr Cymru, and they should be held to account. There is evidence galore, and I'm absolutely certain if we had a real push with the council behind, local residents and community councils, that we could get them to sort this out. So I think that there is a real thing about it. There is a danger of it being exacerbated by a new development. I want a new development for affordable housing, and I'm sure everyone locally does. I know, it's strongly felt. I did wonder, because quite a lot of the development that has been in Land Fy Corney is in the Brecon Beacons National Park area. So how much do you connect with the planning department for the Brecon Beacons and Monmouthshire Council? Because I feel that it's been disjointed, because there's been development in the national park which is affecting people in Wern Gifford, and we're just outside the Brecon Beacons National Park, which is why we're discussing it rather than the National Park Planning Authority. So I'd like to defer for the committee to consider deferring so that we can sort this out with Dŵr Cymru.
I'll keep going through the speakers. I did say I wasn't going to take any more, Councillor Howells, but Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at the planning portal, and there's a letter from Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water dated the 4th of February 2025, and at the bottom of that are two plans, one for the water main and one for the sewer, and it said this. It looks like the sewer is flowing up towards there's Mount View and Kai Glass, so it's going kind of north. So my concern would be, and what I think we're leaning towards, is deferment to get some information from Welsh Water about whether the flow of sewage from the new proposed development could cause a backup from Wern Gifford. So I'd like to, and we've been assured the pumping station has the capacity, but I'd like some more assurance that there's not going to be an issue of those two flows meeting, and that the system can cope with that. It was helpful to see the site yesterday, put it into context. I had concern about the access point. Why couldn't we go from the road? Obviously, there's the issue with the drainage, surface water drainage, and the access to the road and the safety of road. So I understand that now. So it's useful to understand the context and the fact this is a long-running planning matter. But I think some assurance from Welsh Water that the sewage flows if they are meeting, there's not going to be any kind of backflow and exacerbation of the problems we've already heard from residents. And thank you to those residents for sharing their concerns. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Very briefly, Councillor Howells.
Very briefly, yeah, I was just going to ask that we move to defer this until we actually know for sure what impact that development is going to have on the existing drainage system. So we move.
Yeah, thank you for that. It might not surprise you to hear that about half an hour ago we decided that we were going to defer it. But it's nice to hear that members are supporting that. I have to take a vote. So can somebody propose that we defer? Councillor Howells, seconded by Councillor Butler. The deferral is so that we can have additional discussions with Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water to make sure that we're not exacerbating the problem. We understand that we can't solve the existing problems, but we can take measures to make sure that we don't make the existing problem worse. Well, we defer the so Richard, can we have the voting function up, please?
Would it be possible to ask for a letter from the updated feedback from the biodiversity officers as well, since the changes have occurred to the plans by the next time?
Chair, might we have a comfort break after this, please?
Okay, so that is deferred. 10 votes for deferral.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We will go to the next one at 25 to. So you've got a 5-minute comfort break. Jane and Steve, are you with us? Can you put your cameras on if you are? Well done, Faye. Thanks, Jane.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I had to get my little boy from school, but we're home now.
How is Alex? Are you all right?
Yeah, he's okay. I just think we've got a horrible cold, so I'm not sure if it's COVID or not.
No, you sound better today than you did yesterday. So.
Yeah, I don't feel it, Phil.
Okay, right. Come on, everybody. Can we get cracking, please? The next one before us is application DM 2023-01198, which is relating to the poultry units, which came to us some time ago and then went to JR and was overturned. So, Andrew, do you want to run through that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll just wait for the presentation to come up. So just to confirm, so this is a full application seeking permission for the erection of 2 additional poultry units at Coombe Farm. And as you've just alluded to there, I think it is certainly worthwhile just providing a brief chronology of the application and why it's before you again this afternoon, members. So the application was previously presented at the October 2024 meeting, where it was voted to approve the application, subject to some amendments to some of the conditions, and the decision notice to approve was then subsequently issued. Further to this, the application was subject to legal challenge, where it was determined that the development was EIA development and EIA Regulation Schedule 2, Criterion 1C, which concluded that an environmental statement should be submitted in support of the application. So accordingly, that original decision was quashed, and it's back before us as the local planning authority to determine afresh. And that's the reason why it's back before you this afternoon, members. Just like to confirm as well that following the submission of the environmental statement, the application has been subject to advertisement and consultation in January of this year as per procedural requirements. So I know we didn't revisit the site yesterday as an inspection was done previously, but just to assist, I'll just briefly run through the slides of the development. So first slide there, that's the application site, edged in red, and just to clarify, this is located to the west of the village of Shire Newton. The next slide shows the position of the 2 new buildings. Each would house approximately 42,000 birds, and it just shows their position there relative to the existing buildings, with an attenuation basin pond to the front. Next slide shows some site sections that again gives you their sort of position on site relative to those existing buildings, and it would be set down lower. I think we've got some elevations as a sort of fairly self-explanatory, and the floor plans of the buildings both measuring 98 metres by 24.6 metres. I think then we've got, final in terms of technical drawings, a section through the attenuation pond. So just some photographs just to jog memories. This is the site entrance to Coombe Farm, and I think the final 2 slides show views of the existing buildings in their wider landscape context, and I think that's the same then, yeah, on the last of the detailed slides. So in terms of our consideration of the application, your officers committee report provides a detailed overview of the relevant material considerations and policies, and I would note the application was subject to detailed discussion and debate at the October meeting last year. So I'll provide a simple overview of the issues and considerations following the previous meeting. And as I stated, whilst an environmental statement has been provided, further to the consultation exercise, concerns and objections have been raised including from our own in-house ecologists. And this has identified the following matters, not exhaustive, that have either been not addressed properly or not provided. And it clarifies that a formal scoping opinion for the environmental statement was not sought from the local planning authority. Our in-house ecologist does not agree that it's appropriate to scope out impacts from manure and dirty water management. Identify that there is potential for significant impacts on key receptors as a result of waste management, and it is necessary to consider these potential impacts and how they will be mitigated as part of the EIA process. Also raised concerns that the impacts of climate change have not been identified. Other issues that have been sort of identified in concerns with the quality and content of the environmental statement is that scoping should also be used to consider alternatives to the project, and the environmental statement has stated that no other alternatives have been considered and offer no justification for this. Guidelines for ecological impact assessments and how potential ecological impacts should be considered, and this is for both EIA and non-EIA development, have not been met in any of the documents submitted. And the Council's Biodiversity Officer agrees with the comments from Woodland Trust that in accordance with Planning Policy Wales Edition 12, ancient and semi-natural woodland are to be afforded protection from development which would result in their loss or deterioration unless very exceptionally there are significant and clearly defined public benefits. This protection should prevent potentially damaging operations and their unnecessary loss. And indeed, further assessment of potential impacts is required, and additional mitigation measures should be provided to reduce ammonia levels in accordance with NRW guidance. And it is on that basis then, members, that in conclusion, the environmental statement submitted does not provide sufficient information for the local planning authority to appropriately fulfil our duties in determining the application. And on the basis of that lack of information, officers, we are recommending to you that it is refused for the reason set out in the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. We've got to note that the Community Council originally was minded to object, but we have the local member, Councillor Brown, who I believe is still online. Councillor Brown? Oh, you?
Sorry, yes, that's right. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, good afternoon, members. I asked for the decision to be referred back to the Planning Committee on the 25th of January in view of an environment impact assessment being provided by the applicant. In February 2025, the agent indicated that the NRW had changed their guidance and reduced the emissions factor for broiler chickens by 30%, and it required new ammonia monitoring. No further information has been provided by the applicant. I understand that the original Planning Committee decision was squashed by judicial review by the Woodland Trust, and I was also copied into the email with the details of this having been sent in late correspondence to the committee members. The holding objection by MCC Ecology illustrates how the environment statement is inadequate and no efforts have been made to provide the information required by NRW. The Shire Newton Community Council objected with councillors' concerns expressed in their response to the pre-planning application have not been fully met by the application, as the councillors sought reassurance by ongoing monitoring that ground and water sources are not being contaminated and that a reduction in the escape of toxic chemicals and gases, particularly phosphate, nitrates and ammonia, and noise and odour from the site as a whole will be addressed. There has been a further late objection which stated as follows: I note that the environmental statement produced by the applicant is not considered to meet the requirements of an environmental impact assessment. There are aspects of the environmental assessment which are technical and outside my competence to comment on beyond supporting the EIA process, but I wish to raise concerns about several issues which are indirectly related. Firstly, waste disposal. Over and above the important issue of the environmental impact of the waste products themselves, it is simply wrong that this scheme proposes driving an extra 900 tonnes of waste manure in sheeted lorries more than 350 kilometres across England to the power station in Thetford at a time when MCC have declared a climate emergency. In addition, I do note that this power station listed by the agent has a certificate to operate only until 2027, and so media reports have questioned whether this will be renewed. A further objection on traffic and odour. Every vehicle using this road, Crick Road, has to stop at a T-junction before pulling out and either turning left or right. There is already a significant problem with the traffic noise and exhaust fumes. It is also evident when the cycle comes to an end, because it is usually the persistent foul odour as well as the increased heavy traffic that brings this to my attention. Extra sheds will mean more heavy traffic carrying feed, starter chickens, etc. to the industrial unit, as well as transporting the grown chickens themselves. Cropping days with associated unacceptable odour will only get worse, and with the addition of manure lorries on cleaning days. In the circumstances, in view of the judicial review of the Woodland Trust and the objections of local community councils, I urge the committee to follow the officer's recommendation for a refusal of this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, because I'm absolutely certain that I have seen that their capacity at the moment is 200,000, and yet they have 220,000 birds at the moment. So I'm just wondering why this overcapacity has happened, and what is being done about that now. If they can't stick to their capacity now, why would we believe that they will stick to their capacity in the future? But I agree entirely with Councillor Brown.
Thank you for that. Anybody else wishing to speak? We have Councillor Buckler.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Andrew, for presenting this. And it's interesting that that the Woodland Trust felt so moved by the inappropriateness of this that they took it to judicial review. And I take fully on board Councillor Brown's comments. She knows it well. She knows the local area. And there are, I can't see any reason not to go with you'll be glad to hear, not to go with the officer's recommendations on this one. Thank you.
We have a proposal that we go to refusal. Is anybody prepared to second that? Councillor Butler. Councillor Eason, you got your hand up?
Yeah, just a bit of clarity from the officers. What is the next... I will support refusal, but what's the next stage for this applicant? We met this applicant some months ago, went to judicial review. What will be the next stage for them?
Thank you, Councillor Eason. Yeah, it's very much at the applicant's discretion. If planning permission is refused here, following officer advice and recommendation, the applicant would have the right to appeal that decision to PEDU. Similarly, they also have the ability to resubmit a fresh application, and the onus would be on them to provide the outstanding information and matters that ourselves and others have raised, and to come back again. But with that prerogative, and that is very much for the applicant to decide which route. They could submit. Yeah, they could submit an appeal and submit a fresh application at the same time. That's within their prerogative. We'll await to see.
Richard, can you put the voting function up? Oh, would we... Okay, can everybody vote now then, please?
Okay, so that is refused. That's 10 for refusal and 1 abstain.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We move on to DM 2025 01100, which is the retention of a boundary fence at St Lawrence Road, Chepstow. And Phil, you're going to present this one.
I shall.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see you on the on my list, Councillor Pavia. Do you want to address this now then?
But, no, I'll introduce it first. Yeah. Sorry, let me just get the presentation back up. Actually. Yeah, I'm already sharing, am I? Right, try again. Right. Okay. Try that again. Confused it, isn't it? Don't know why it does this. You've got like 2 open. So we'll go to that. Yeah, it goes back to the other one. What if I got open? I've got 2 open, that's why.
Close that one.
Yeah, close that one. Right, hopefully that'll work now. Hurrah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this application relates to a detached 2-storey dwelling located on the edge of Chepstow. The site is located within the defined settlement boundary as shown on the proposals map of the LDP, and the vehicular access is via an unclassified highway which then joins onto the A48. Retrospective planning application is sought for the retention of the boundary fence and entrance gate. Works began in February of this year and were completed in April. The fence and gate are located around the front garden. The fence has a minimum height of about 1.53 metres and a maximum height of 1.98 metres. It's located above a dwarf wall, and the gate has a minimum height of 1.6 metres rising to 1.78 metres. The property is visually prominent and is located at an important visual junction between the rural and urban environment, as it forms part of one of the main entranceways into the town of Chepstow. So if we just have a quick look at some of the pictures, that's the property there in the corner. You've got the, so you come in, it's on the corner there. So that's St Lawrence Road. Yeah, and that shows generally the different arrangements and the different features of where the fence will go. And we'll see those in the pictures, as this is a retention of application. So that's it as built now with the different heights. That's it along the side boundary fronting onto the A48 there, and that was the previous arrangement with a hedge and low wall. That was it previously, and that's it now. Now, obviously, there's a sort of photographs of the general area. Right, so if I hang back and leave you on the, not the what was before, maybe that one, it shows the sort of what's now and what it was like towards previously on the bottom right there. So the boundary treatments along this general area of St Lawrence Road being set back from the A48 and the Wye Valley Road, they generally, not in every sense, but almost, predominantly, they're a mix of hedgerows, shrubs and low walls with few examples of timber fences. The low walls provide a fixed boundary at these properties, and it's common for shrubs, hedgerows or trees to provide privacy behind these boundary walls. The gates at nearby properties are also generally lower in nature. The neighbouring properties are in keeping with the fringe of an urban environment that seeks to transition into the rural countryside. It is noted that the boundary at Marchwood previously consisted of a mature hedge above a dwarf wall, which was in keeping with the wider street scene. When travelling along Newport Road into Chepstow, the nearby front boundaries are characterised with dwarf walls, mature hedgerows and trees, although there is, generally speaking, more of a mixed approach. It's also recognised that there are timber fences along Fairview on the other side of the High Beach roundabout, but the fences here serve the rear gardens of these properties, and there is a greater need for privacy. And in addition, their impact has previously been softened with shrubs, trees and hedgerows. The applicant has provided a supporting statement outlining why they believe that the gate and fence are acceptable in this location. The statement mentions that the fence is to provide safety, privacy and security at the property, with it forming a secure perimeter to the heavily trafficked A48 trunk road. And they mentioned that the enclosure reduces litter accumulation, which affected the hedge, and also that the trellis softens the upper portion of the fence. Policy DES1 of the adopted LDP sets out that all development should be of a high quality, sustainable design and respect the local character and distinctiveness of Monmouthshire's built, historic and natural environment. And of particular relevance to the proposal here are various criteria B, C, E and G of DES1. There's a clear sense of place in the locality, with the neighbouring properties characterised by hedgerows, shrubs and low walls as a form of boundary treatment and long access driveways. The use of a fence and gate does not allow visibility into the site, which creates a hard edge directly onto the adjacent road. Within their context, at the entranceway into Chepstow, the high boundary fence and gate appear alien within this setting. They would also appear overly defensive and jar with the softer front garden character, which has been well retained in the surrounding street scene. And due to the level change at the site, the corner of the front garden is set higher, so there is also an increased visual impact at this part of the boundary. And it's noted that the trellis does soften the upper profile of the fence, but this does not overcome the overall visual harm that has been identified. It's recognised that the fence and gate will provide increased privacy and may assist with reducing the noise from the A48. Officers are sympathetic to the applicant's need for the fence, but this does not outweigh the detrimental visual impact, bearing in mind that alternative enclosure arrangements can be provided and full permitted development rights are available at the site. So in other words, here they could go up to a metre high with a wall or fence and then maybe top it with appropriate planting, possibly. Any benefits of the proposal in this regard would not overcome the identified harm. And in relation to biodiversity net benefit and green infrastructure provision, the applicant has submitted a green infrastructure statement that details the addition of various measures within the front garden. However, following consultation with the Council's biodiversity officer, this is not considered to be sufficient to mitigate for the loss of the hedgerow and to ensure that there has been biodiversity enhancement at the site. It is therefore considered that the proposal does not accord with both policy DES1 of the LDP or policy NE1 of the adopted LDP. NE1 being infringed, if you like, as the loss of the hedgerow has not been satisfactorily mitigated. And as the development is not supported by your officers, a form of enhancement has not been conditioned in this instance. So we would recommend refusal of the application for the 2 reasons given in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And we've got Councillor Pavia as local member. Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, hi, Jay.
As you know, you've got 4 minutes.
Okay. You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Thanks for members for allowing me to speak. As the chair said, I'm elected member for the ward, but I'm also making supportive representations on behalf of the resident of Marchwood regarding the retrospective application for the boundary fence and gates. For me, the case is essentially about fairness, proportionality and consistency. The fence replaced a non-native hedge that had deteriorated badly. You could see that from the pictures. And it became patchy and ineffective as a hedgerow, offering very little in terms of privacy or protection from one of Chepstow's busiest roads. And it was often stuffed with litter from irresponsible passing pedestrians. Marchwood sits directly on the A48 trunk road, very near the infamous High Beach roundabout, beside the Larkfield trading estate, and it is within an air quality management zone. So this is not a quiet rural lane. This is a noisy, polluted urban corridor. Given the original infill of Marchwood back in the 1980s, there's only a very small courtyard garden to the rear of the property for the residents, highlighted, I think, in my late pack of papers, which is vastly different to all the properties that surround it that have large front gardens and rear gardens. So therefore, this front bit of the property, in terms of amenity, is all the garden space that they have, that the residents have, and therefore requires a greater level of privacy. The officers note in the report, and they recognise that, and quote, timber fences along Fairview, but those fences serve as rear gardens of the properties and therefore is a greater need of privacy. This is an important consideration as the front garden and yard are specifically designed to serve as their main amenity. So it too needs that level of privacy afforded to other properties very close by. The fence simply provides a secure, clean boundary where the failing hedge once stood. Moreover, the Marchwood fence aligns with the established pattern and strengths along that road. There's all sorts of different plantings, as Mr. Thomas said. As you go further up St Lawrence Road, there are fences. There are fences also around in Newport Road and going down to Hardwick Hill. So there's a mix of various fence lines and curtilages in the near vicinity to this property, which are equal or greater height than the application before you. As Mr. Thomas says, made of natural timber, trellis top to soften the profile. There have been no neighbour objections. One public comment which actually praised it as a modern but respectable development. Chepstow Town Council have supported it. MCC Highways and Welsh Government have raised no concerns. Yeah, the officer's report describes it and the associated wooden gates as alien or overly defensive. Those in my view are extremely subjective opinions. Planning Policy Wales reminds us that whilst design judgments are subjective, they must be applied consistently across all cases. And I think that brings me to the question of consistency and fairness. Only a short distance away, about 250 yards further down Newport Road, going onto Hardwick Hill, there's a property there called Lacey. The residents erected a fence there considerably taller than the one being proposed, made of green sheet metal. They were advised in pre-application that permission wouldn't be granted, yet they went ahead and they didn't apply for retrospective planning application. And whilst officers did recommend enforcement action be taken, the delegated panel decided not to act in this instance, and that fence still stands and it's just on the cusp of the Chepstow Conservation Area. So in contrast...
Use your 2 minutes summing up time, Paul, because you've had 4.
Oh, okay, thanks, Chair. So it's, for me, that Lacey issue is about consistency. In terms of biodiversity, I think any direction on mitigation or additionality are straightforward conditions in a stepwise approach and not reasons to refuse. So members, this is a simple, high quality fence in an urban location that I believe contributes to a sense of place. It improves safety and privacy. I therefore respectfully ask that you apply the same proportionate and transparent reasoning that was extended to Lacey and approve this application subject to any reasonable biodiversity conditions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Councillor Pavia. I've got nobody else registered to speak. Chepstow Town Council recommends approval, as Councillor Pavia said. Members, Councillor Buckler.
Thank you, Chair. It was very interesting going on site yesterday, and it's actually a very good. I do value those on site views because it really gives you a sense. And I quite understand Councillor Pavier's concerns about his local resident and privacy. I personally think that as it's like the gateway to Chepstow, it jars in the sense of drawing you into Chepstow before what was there, well-established hedge, and if it was degrading, you can always replant. So I don't quite understand that sort of reasoning that the degradation of a hedge would be a reason for changing it so materially. And I do think it actually is to the detriment of the area. It's not in keeping. You look across the A48, and there's a house that's on the corner of the High Beach roundabout has a hedge. It leads you into Chepstow, and that fence is not appropriate. Personally, I wonder if we could sort of in the conditions of refusal ask that they replant the hedge. I understand, they have a dog and they have children, and they had a gate there before. So I don't see why you can't put a wire fence behind the hedge to make sure that children and animals can't get out onto the road. It would still, to me, the hedge was enough of a barrier, but I do think it has changed the character detrimentally, and I take on board that the officers say it doesn't go with DS1 or NE1, and I completely agree. I think it's inappropriate, and I'm sorry to be able to have to say that, because I understand that Councillor Pavia is looking after residents and residents' concerns, but personally I don't think it's appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Buckler. Anybody else wish to contribute? Councillor Bryn.
Yes, I just wanted to, agree with Councillor Buckler. Really, on site yesterday, it was quite jarring to see the replacement of the hedge, and I think removal of such green infrastructure really has a negative visual and economic effect adversely on a town and the streetscape. And if this was to set a precedent, and say the households immediately opposite who have also had extensive hedgeway would also to fence off their gardens, it would really negatively affect the gateway into Chepstow. So I'm afraid, and though I understand some of the reasoning behind this, I don't think it's valid in this instance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bryn. Anybody else wish to contribute? No. In that case, we have a recommendation before us for refusal. Councillor Buckler, I think you were proposing refusal, and Councillor Bryn seconded it. So, Richard, can we have the voting function up, please? Can everybody vote now then, please?
So that is refused. So 7 for refusal, 3 against refusal, and 1 abstain.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We now have some appeal decisions to go through. Phil, you got the first one?
Yeah.
Right, where are we? Here we are. Oh, you didn't go to the slide I was expecting. There we are, that's interesting, isn't it? Oh, it is moving. That's okay then. Right, okay. No, that's the one I want. Right, okay, so this was an appeal against a dwelling. It's may not look it there, but it's actually in the open countryside. It's a hamlet in effect, up a Red Brook. So it's not even a minor village. It can regarded as open countryside. So there's no possibility of any new infill or new residential development there unless it's supported under what we call a TAN 6 justification for a rural enterprise dwelling. This was purely a speculative dwelling for development in the open countryside. So it failed on various counts. It was fundamentally contrary to planning policy Wales, which seeks to develop new residential development in sustainable locations. This wasn't regarded as being a sustainable location. It's also contrary to LDB policy S1, which is again a fundamental settlement hierarchy planning policy. There was also a lack of baseline ecological and tree survey information, which we had pointed out. So it was like a holding objection at the time, and that was never satisfied. So there wasn't enough information to judge on whether this would have an adverse impact on local wildlife like bats. This is in the Wye Valley, so there are a lot of bats around in this area. That's the design of it. It's rather engineered, as you can see, and then I'll show you the actual elevation. So we also objected on the basis of design. We felt that this was incongruous and an inappropriate response to the local area in terms of the vernacular and the style of dwellings in the local area. And those are photographs of the site. And there was also a lack of a safe access could be formed on site because they hadn't demonstrated visibility displays could be formed. It's quite an attractive sort of tree-lined sloping site, so it failed on various grounds, and the inspector fully agreed with the officer comments. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Phil. And Andrew, you got the next one.
Yep, thanks, Chair. So this was an appeal against an enforcement notice. This is at the Miller's Arms Public House in the centre of Mathen. So the building, which is obviously already there, had been previous to a previous planning application to retain it. This was refused by us, and that decision was upheld at appeal. We subsequently served a planning enforcement notice requiring its removal within 3 months. And that appeal on that notice is what's this recent decision. It was actually the notice we served was only appealed on ground C, that a breach of planning control hadn't occurred. And we were very clear in terms of it's been through a planning appeal process, an application process, that it very much is development, it very much is a breach of planning control. So quite a succinct inspector's decision agreeing with that position, and that there was no other matters that before the inspector to consider. So the notice was upheld and its requirements now have come into effect. So yeah, very short and succinct decision by the inspector.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. That takes us to the end of the agenda. So Thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.